All right, this is a screencast on the text notes from Mary Oliver, who is probably my favorite American poet. The poem Starlings and Winter is my all-time favorite poem. And so I was kind of excited to see her come across in the syllabus. And I really kind of wanted to pick the ones that I liked the best that I felt that I could say the most about. She's very much very postmodern in nature, but she's very reminiscent of those Romantic period poets that we already studied earlier in the year, in regards to kind of romanticizing nature and the power of nature, and in reminding us of kind of life's little lessons. And so, but we can see like in her form, especially with the free verse and the kind of eschewing the formal rhyme schemes and things like that. That's very postmodern in nature. So let's start with wild geese. We'll read and then we'll discuss. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the dear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things. So she starts there with direct address. You'll notice again, there's a free verse. She does make some use of some slant rhymes or some half rhymes, but there's no overall pattern. But it does start with a direct address there in that those first 6 lines. She says, "You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles to the desert repenting. You don't have to spend. There's no need to spend your life like seeking perfection." And you don't have to apologize to anybody for living a less than perfect life. And, repenting your sins through punishment and penance. You only need to turn to nature and kind of follow your heart. She says you only have to let the soft animal body love what it loves, whatever that may be. She's kind of reminding the reader that while he or she is human, at our basic state, we're also an animal, a vulnerable animal who must survive and must thrive in the world that we live in. And in line 6, she encourages or kind of urges the reader to kind of share their suffering and their unhappiness with her, and she will share hers. She says, "Tell me about your despair, yours, and I will tell you mine." She's an empathetic ear. She can listen and sympathize and empathize and all of those things, because she's lived that hard time too, that despair. She's had that experience too. However, the world goes on, despite the fact of our hard times. Kind of, we talked about that nature is really indifferent to man's suffering and the comings and goings of man. The mountain, the sun's still going to shine and the rain is going to come down when it does, and the landscape is going to grow and change and develop, and the animals are going to do what they do. So all of these things in the world are going to continue to progress like normal in their tracks, whatever that might be. And the wild geese are going to continue their trek home in the open sky above you. I love this. She says, "Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things." So she assures us as readers that no matter who we are or how lonely we get, that you can always lose yourself in the wonders of the natural world and find yourself and come back home. The natural world, those wonders call out to us like the geese. They demand our attention, the harsh and exciting squawks of the geese, and they'll kind of put you back in touch with your place in the family of things and make you feel at home. So interestingly enough, I chose another bird poem from Oliver. This is my favorite, Starlings in Winter. So, I don't know if you know what a starling is, but a starling is a noisy bird. They're annoying. They're fat and chunky, and they are very destructive, like to agriculture and their roosting habits. They can be very destructive, but there's something very unique about a starling. They are just before dusk. The groups of starlings come together. They call these murmurations, and they twist and turn and swoop and swirl across the sky like acrobats and dancers. And they make these like beautiful, like shape shifting clouds across the sky. And you've probably seen it and not really realized that that's what you were looking at. But it's a very unique wonder in nature that these wild, noisy, annoying birds can be something of such beauty. And I think that is what she's trying to get across in her poem here about starlings in winter. So let's read it and then we'll discuss. So chunky and noisy, but with stars in their black feathers, they spring from the telephone wire, and instantly they are acrobats in the freezing wind. And now in the theater of air, they swing over buildings. Dipping and rising, they float like one stippled star that opens, becomes for a moment fragmented, then closes again, and you watch and you try, but you simply can't imagine how they do it with no articulated instruction, no pause, only the silent confirmation that they are this notable thing, this wheel of many parts that can rise and spin over and over again, full of gorgeous life. Ah, world, what lessons you prepare for us, even in the leafless winter, even in the ashy city. I'm thinking now of grief and of getting past it. I feel my boots trying to leave the ground. I feel my heart pumping hard. I want to think again of dangerous and noble things. I want to be light and frolicsome. I want to be improbable, beautiful, and afraid of nothing, as though I had wings. And so I think something very unique, we're still dealing with the free verse. We're still doing kind of some half rhymes here and there, but no significant pattern. But I love that when you look at this poem from a distance, that the way that she plays with the lines of the lines and the total count of words on each line, like I love how it swoops in and out, kind of like a murmuration of a starling. I like how she played with that form and function to suit her purpose. So the first like 24 lines she's spending describing this a murmuration of these starlings. They're like acrobats in the freezing wind who float like one stippled star that opens, becomes for a moment fragmented, and then closes again. And they do so without any articulated instruction and without pause. And she likens them to a wheel of many parts that can rise and spin over and over again, full of gorgeous life. Meanwhile, our speaker is lost in the stages of grief. She's somewhere in the stages of grief. She says, "Ah, world, what lessons you prepare for us, even in the leafless winter, even in the ashy city. I'm thinking now of grief and of getting past it." So here she is. She's reflecting on this event that she's witnessing, and she's thinking about that this is a lesson that the world is prepared for her. That even in the winter time, even in the cold, the leafless winter, even in the ashy city that she lives in, she can witness this event and it's teaching her a lesson. She's thinking of getting past the grief that she is currently in as she's watching this beautiful dance of the birds. She feels a change start to come over her. She feels her boots trying to leave the ground. She feels her heart pumping hard. The time for her grieving, she's realized, has come to an end. It's time for living now. It's time to learn to live again. And so she wants to think again of dangerous and noble things. She wants to be light and frolicsome. She wants to be improbable, beautiful, and afraid of nothing, as though she had wings. She's seeming to kind of suggest that if these noisy, annoying birds who are so destructive in nature can become this thing of, I'm sorry, I have the hiccups, this thing of beauty, then so can we. Like we have some, we have a redemption like somewhere within us that we too can can sprout wings and fly, whatever that may be, whatever, if that's coming from grief or reinventing ourselves. That's the lesson that this poem, or this lesson that she sees, she observes in these starlings, these murmurations of starlings, that we can think again and be dangerous and noble and light and frolicsome and beautiful and improbable and afraid of absolutely nothing. And so I love this poem. It's absolutely my favorite one, of all time. It really is. So I think that's, yeah, that's it.